And having said all that, it's time to open it up to the floor to ask. You can ask what questions that you have. So who wants to start us off with a question? You can unmute yourself and say your question and we will get started.
Brenda, this is Anne from USC Upstate.
Thank you.
I just want to post a general question to everybody. I know that there's probably a lot of varying timelines about when people are considering being open or not open. Is anybody at the point where they're opening right now? Or, you know, are we all kind of looking longer term? I think I just want to pose that to the group and see kind of where everybody is at currently and kind of where they're going.
Well, I can start off. We're doing a three-phased approach to opening. Right now in phase 1 and phase 2, we're not going to be open to the public, and each of these phases are going to be 2 weeks, and then phase 3 is actually when we will be open to the public, but it's going to be by appointment only. And we're also thinking about keeping that by appointment only happening through the fall semester for us.
What type of what type of steps have you taken to, like, I don't know how big your reading room is or not. Have you looked at measuring, spacing things out? Because I know that you guys at Clemson get a lot more traffic than somebody like I do. So how are you approaching that?
Measured it out, also with square footage, and then looking at 36 square feet per individual. So again, looking at our seating capacity and then determining it according to that. Also, there's been one equation where it's 20% of your total seating capacity. So people have been going between those two right now.
Brenda, how are you working with regard, and other people working with regard to having student?
Oops, Michael, you cut off at the very end. You went mute again.
I'm basically asking about the students and other folks who work for you. How are you dealing with those temporary workers?
Mm-hmm. Has anybody got answers to that one? I know for us right now, we're unsure about how we're going to deal with the students. The university itself, the lab researchers just got to come back, but right now we don't have student researchers, and that's on hold until the fall semester. And we got somebody here saying their parent institution is phasing in as well, but no clear dates when things will happen. No volunteers for now. That's another thing. Besides temporary, you got your volunteers. We've got another one at saying they're doing remote internships only in the fall at Charleston County Public Library. SCL will open by appointment only. So it sounds like by appointment only is a popular option that most people are using.
Could I ask about receiving collections and donations and things like books and everything? How are you and other places handling that?
Hi, this is Virginia Ellison from the South Carolina Historical Society in Charleston. So our archives is located on the College of Charleston campus, and they currently have a freeze on incoming collections and for a while, but we're still collecting. And my current plan is to accept these collections as safely as possible. But most people seem to be really want the collections out of their homes. So I've got 3 appointments tomorrow. I got to pick them up. Then we are taking them to the fireproof building and putting them in quarantine for 3 weeks before we move them over to the college for processing. It's a little bit difficult right now. Like our processing archivist is in her own office, so she can come in each workday. But at this time, the college is only allowing us to have 1 society staff member in the archives per day. Starting today, this is my first day back. I don't know how that's going to work long term, so we're going to give it a shot. But we are still adding collections because most people seem to have been cleaning out during this quarantine, and I've had so many calls and emails about people wanting us to come and pick things up. So which is good for us,
Yep.
but at the same time, it's work.
Mm-hmm. It looks like, Grace, did you want to add to that? Nope. I guess. Sorry. I saw that you had unmuted, so. Or it looks like Julie.
Oh.
Okay. I know when it comes to, whoops, sorry, Julie, please go ahead.
Well, I think it's Grace.
Oh, Grace. Okay, Grace.
Sort of like Virginia, we have people who are inquiring about us coming to get things, and I think it is because they've been cleaning out. My library isn't really accepting things, and if anybody's been here, you know, I don't have a whole lot of space to store things offsite either. So it's kind of a tenuous yes at this point to those requests.
This is Graham Duncan at SCL, and like everybody else, we've been receiving quite a few inquiries about donations of materials. But as far as I know, with the idea of picking up materials, we're still limited by the university's kind of ban on travel itself. We have encouraged people, if they feel comfortable too, that when we're back in the office, we could accept things that are shipped to us. But we've made no definite plans right now, or I've made no definite plans right now to go pick up material.
Yeah, that's kind of the situation I'm in too, because there might be, if I travel, and especially if I travel out of state, then I have to self-quarantine for 14 days afterwards.
Right.
We got some people here like Ann saying people have lots of time to empty out their attics, garages. Oh, isn't that the truth? I've been getting lots of phone calls that way.
This is Anne again. Graham, I have a question for you. How are people receiving kind of the information when you tell them, well, we're not allowed really to go out and pick anything up from you? Are people all right with that? Or, you know, have you gotten any pushback or?
Yeah, they seem to be for the most part. I mean, I'm not sure that I've, explicitly told anybody that there'll be a definite kind of delay on that right now. I mean, we're still at the point where I'm basically telling them that we're not open and on campus right now, so there's no possible way for us to receive materials, and that at the point that I return to campus, I'll be back in touch with them about options going forward. Because again, I mean, without knowing exactly how long travel restrictions may stay in place, it's hard to tell them kind of exactly that. But for the most part, I mean, people have been understanding about the idea that it's going to be some amount of time before we're allowed to receive anything.
And I think
Just don't throw it away.
that's about it. And if you can hold on to it, I mean, I've had a couple of instances where they needed, because the house was being sold and that type of thing, in which we had to make arrangements to accept the material. But otherwise, people have been very understanding. It hasn't been too problematic. And we got Tracy commenting that Newberry College, he's a lone arranger there. So it's most of the time, except for one student intern that he has and maybe another student volunteer. So it's always by appointment. We only had a few patrons each semester, and he's not yet returned to campus since mid-March. So you're like the rest of us, it seems. But we'll be doing so on a very limited basis from now until August to bring archival work home to Columbia. School is scheduled to open mid-August, and I don't foresee accepting. Whoops, I lost my spot when I moved it. Okay, and I don't foresee accepting any in-person appointments until then. Jim, you had something?
Well, I was just going to add on to the end since I was still on it. Grace is saying that she's going to be loan arranging for the foreseeable future as well, and that she will start accepting one person at a time June 15th, as long as everything goes according to plan.
So is there anybody that's just going to be open to the public, or people, and I see Kimberly's asked, will be open by appointment that handles, or sorry, I see everything flips too fast on here for me right now. Catherine asked if they're following the state's phases put forth by the Department of Administration, or are you following guidelines by the university? And then since we're talking by appointments, wondering if, will you be handling appointments by chunks of time, i.e. 2-hour blocks, or are you allowing a certain number of folks per day? So yeah, how are people handling the by appointment?
One, Grace said that she doesn't have a lot of in-person foot traffic. If a person needs to stay all day, she'll do that. It's likely different for some place that's really, really busy most of the time.
Jim, this is Ann at Upstate again. I think that's a really good question. And I'm kind of in the same boat as Grace. We don't have a whole lot of in-person traffic, but I am not sure that I would feel okay with somebody saying, oh, great, I just want to park myself in your archives all day. So I haven't made a decision on that. That's a really good question, though. I might be more inclined to say, to put some sort of time block on it. I don't know what might be a reasonable amount of time, but I'm certainly open to any suggestions or input anybody's got on that. I just feel like I don't think I want them in there all day. That just feels a little too much.
Yeah, but when you've got the researcher that's, that comes and they're there for they come and visit for a limited period of time, that they do stay all day and they're very serious about the research. We had this discussion too of, do we do it by time blocks? Because we're limiting it to two people at a time. And so in the end, we said 2 people a day. So if they wanted to just research for an hour, or if they wanted to research all 8 hours, they had that possibility.
Got something from the chat. The SCL plan is to have set hours for appointments like 10 to 2, but we can allow only one person, I think, in our Graniteville reading room. The libraries are developing our own plans within the university plan. And that's what special collections are doing. We've got our plans which are within the library's plans, which are within the university's plans.
Which are within the state plans.
Yeah.
So this is Virginia again. So we started on an access plan for the special collections in the Historical Society's reading room, I guess a month or so ago. And then the provost of the College of Charleston asked that each department or each school devise an access plan and have it submitted by May 15th. So they really left it up to the library to create their own access plan. And they built that upon the one that the special collections created. Our plan for the fall is for appointments only, doing blocks like 9 to 12 with 2 researchers, and then 1 to 4 with an additional 2 researchers, so that there's a period where we can clean in between them. We're not quite sure what that's going to look like yet. We're hoping that we will have a very robust reference interview process to determine if these researchers actually need to come in, or if we can do reproduction requests or maybe research services for them, and then kind of gauge if they really do need to come in. But we do have researchers that come in internationally to camp out for 2 weeks and do research. So we really need to be able to accommodate that. That is a concern. We haven't had anyone reach out that really needs that type of research yet, but I'm sure it's coming. My question is, we've been talking about quarantining materials after they are used by a researcher. That we doing any live polls like we normally do when a researcher's there, but they'll have to request everything in advance. We'll pull it 3 days in advance, then give it to them when they're here to do the research, and then it goes in quarantine after for 2 to 3 days. But the city's changed everything in the past couple of days.
Yes.
So, necessary? Do other people have plans for quarantining materials, having a quarantine space before they're moved over? I mean, because I was thinking about it and I was like, well, I mean, yes, I'll probably be wearing gloves and a mask to move them back, but I'm still touching them and breathing on them. So that's my question.
So this is Beth from Carolina. So I've been looking at those guidelines, and I mean, I'm not real sure how much they've actually changed. They've maybe, lowered the risk a little bit, but I think there's still a risk. And so, a lot of it depends on your employees and their personal risk level, whether it's health or people they have at home or whatever it is. We're sort of erring on the side of caution with, continuing or looking into quarantining materials. So it's all a risk assessment at this point, but safety of your employees is really important. So just throwing that out there.
We've got several things on the chat, so I'll try and quickly go through those. As far as doing things according to the university or someone has said that Anthony Morgan said it depends on your policies. South Carolina Department of Archives and History has folks who do indeed camp out, so they have to deal with that. SCL, USC, they're still planning to provide as much scan and deliver as possible so that patrons won't have to come in. There are questions about whether 72 hours is enough time to quarantine something when it's locked in a box or folder. Have a question from Amanda to Virginia. Do you have written procedure outlining what you plan to do? Noting that they don't have space for quarantine materials. And Edward Blessing, folks who want to look and check on the chat, gave a link to a webinar on this. And At the time in mid-March, the CDC was really confident that as long as someone did not directly sneeze on a book, that 48 hours at a maximum should be good for quarantine. Brenda, if I'm remembering correctly, there is a group that's actually researching that.
Mhm. There
Um,
is with OCLC in that report. I have not seen it yet, but they are supposedly it's going to be coming out any day. And somebody, I think Edward just maybe put the link in, so it might be, it has, so it's part of, it did come out, okay.
Hey, so this is Edward from SCL. I don't know that I've met most of y'all, but I've been there for a little while in a variety of roles, but I'm the head of user services now. So I'm much more of a, I guess, a type chatter than I am a talker, but I'll go ahead and say, so that is, I don't think that they've gotten the results of the testing back yet from the lab, but they're pretty close. They're expecting it like mid-June, but that's the project, that realm.
Yeah.
And then to go back to Catherine, asking about the scan and deliver, adjusting prices on those services. And so I'll address, I can speak to what SCL is planning to do. We're tracking quite a few sort of reference requests or research PDF requests that folks have come to us during this time. And because of the delay in getting them the information or being able to look up a question or something, we're going to go ahead and provide a bunch of free scans for the questions that came in during COVID. I mean, this is a luxury that I recognize we can afford because we have the staff to do it. Oh, I apologize. And that not everyone can do this, but this is what kind of the path we're taking. And then as we're fulfilling these requests, we're going to keep pretty good metrics on how long it takes to scan, say, manuscript collections or a volume. And then once we emerge out of that, hopefully we'll be able to create some sort of hourly flat rate for reproductions that is reflective of the time that staff spend on it, as opposed to maybe like a per item basis. So I think we're trying to make it more equitable. Certain, we might do a certain number for free and then have an hourly rate after that. But we're really going to gather a bunch of data as for how long it takes us to make these reproductions before we sort of make any firm decision on the pricing. And I have to go pull bread out of the oven. I'll be right back.
Virginia Ellison just said that haven't adjusted pricing yet, but it has been discussed.
And we've actually suspended ours for right now until afterwards. So we're giving it away also for free. So other questions? I mean, we've got some here, I think, about what about the, before Edward, the scan and deliver part? I mean, how many more of you, how are you adjusting your services? Are a lot of you doing that much more now?
I can speak to that briefly. This is Mary Jo Fairchild from the College of Charleston Special Collections. Since it's summertime, our volume has decreased, but while we were offering virtual services during the tail end of the spring semester there, we have a fairly liberal policy anyway, but we were sort of trying to go above and beyond to deliver digital access copies of holdings where possible to students and faculty members and community members as well where possible. And so I expect that will continue, as many of you have said. And again, I apologize, I was late. I was in a staff meeting, so I'm kind of...
In COVID, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on today. Yeah, so I anticipate that we're going to keep putting a lot of our resources in terms of staff time into providing digital access copies and scanning for patrons to limit the necessity of in-person research as much as possible.
Yeah, I really see, shift in focus again, because if you can give it to them and they don't have to come visit, to really, lessen the chances of exposure and that type of thing. We do have a question in here about instruction. Has anybody been handling they're going to be, how are you going to be handling instruction coming up? It looks like, are you going to be recording sessions? And if so, what type of sessions are you thinking about doing? Is it going to be generic ones? Are you going to be doing specific? Can I put Ann on the spot? She's the one that put that in the chat box. Do you mind, Ann?
Yeah, no, I'm
Sorry, wrong Ann.
new to my job. So at South Carolina Political Collections at USC, USC's library has made the decision absolutely no instruction in person. So some of the professors that I have relationships with, I will be recording a general presentation on, what archives are, how to search for primary sources, our catalog, things like that. And they'll be able to use it for their asynchronous classes, as well as working through the permissions to do like a video walkthrough of the archives, introduce them to like, this is what the stacks look like, and this is what a reading room looks like, and all that kind of stuff, instead of a in-person tour.
I know, I think that's going to be a difficult thing when you think about, you want to give that those students, and especially the freshmen, that first archival experience on doing research with primary resources. You want to give them that in-person experience. So how do you translate that into the online environment?
Edward responded that they're also using this time to collaborate more with the Thomas Cooper Library liaison librarians to reach out to faculty, offering manning options as well as recording presentations and possibly joining live instruction sessions.
Brenda?
Yep. Actually, a good thing. This is actually our new instruction archivist that's actually talking right now.
Hello. Sorry, I've got my quarantine lockdown hair thing going on and everything else, like everyone. But, actually, I'm finishing up work that I've been doing here at Ball State before I moved to Clemson. Yay! And we are doing the, I currently teach all online. And I have recorded my lectures and video snippets and all that kind of thing. Providing transcripts, which is something you might want to think about for those students, okay, for accessibility issues. Closed captioning is, of course, a part of the services that you want to think about, though I have found that, lots of students simply do like having the transcript to read along with as they listen to me. We are actually doing some filming tomorrow. No, today's Monday, so Wednesday, where we're going to, we're going to do some light editing, but in our case, we're going to be sharing screen stuff with the items that are in the DMR already. And, so you can probably do a lot of instruction sessions using stuff that you already obviously have digitized. But the things that we're doing to add to it, and which I hope that we can do and expand on when I get to Clemson, will be to make sure that we take this from the point of a fully online course, which a lot of our universities and institutions will be doing, where we will have assessments that the library or the archive attaches to them. So we have, basically check very simple, sometimes true, false, sometimes multiple choice, check for understanding kind of assessments that we're already attaching to these video sessions. And initially the project would be that they would watch these videos, this sort of how-to video, before they had their face-to-face session. But since now that's probably not going to happen, we're going to, those video sessions are going to be expanded to include pretty much all the things that we want to instruct and be part of our instruction program. But for us, the key was figuring out, and Brenda and I talked about this, of, we all need the assessments and the metrics that will help us, work with the professor, the instructor, to say, okay, here's what they understood from our instruction. And also then is to have those metrics for us to follow up about what was the most effective. And so we really are, we have that data that we can show not only how many sessions we do, but how effective they were and where they need to improve. So that's actually a whole program that, I've actually been fortunate enough to think through quite a bit, and I'm gonna, hopefully we'll start rolling it all out when I get there next week, or say in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
But there are all those little things, having a lot of, it's a good thing to talk to people who already do online instruction if you haven't already, because there are issues of accessibility. Disability services bring them in, obviously, metadata people, everything, because if you really want to up your game with that kind of video instruction, it can be really well done, and I'm sure y'all are excited to probably be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you want to make as many partnerships as you can.
Yep.
Mary Fairchild in the chat gave a link to the TPS community crowdsource for moving archival and special collections instruction online, and says that it's a great resource, so you might want to check that out.
I've seen that. That's actually, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Bill, do you have a question? I see you've unmuted.
I sent James two questions, but I think I think they've already been covered about quarantining special collections. We're not to that point yet. We're only in the phase where patrons can come and pick up holds, and they are limited to the lobby.
Yeah.
We're also permitting them to return books, and we're putting, since I'm working in a public library, we're putting them in our meeting room to let them sit for at least 3 days before reshelving. And they may be wiped down. I can't recall off the top of my head. Is that I came in late due to technology difficulties. That's what you have when you have an aged computer. But anyway, I'm gathering 3 days. Is still recommended, or should it go longer?
I've seen from 48 hours to 2 weeks. So
okay.
I think it's what people feel comfortable with. I think that's really, what we're all in right now is that kind of a risk assessment look at, for our patrons, for the collections, but also for our staff, and what, feels comfortable for them even on the public service, which might be a transition here to how are you dealing with your staff? I mean, are you doing staggered work schedules? How are you helping them feel comfortable to want to come back to the work environment?
We are doing a staggered work schedule. Part of the staff works Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the other part works Tuesday and Thursday, and then it alternates.
Yeah.
Our special collections, oftentimes we have lots of folks who will email us or call, and then we will send an item. We will scan the item and send it out via email. And I think that's what I'm hearing is a lot of folks are doing. But this method of staggering was required by our county government, and it seems to be working fairly well for us. So I'm at home today and go in tomorrow, and we're doing it that way.
Yeah, I think the staggered work schedules are going to be what a lot of people are doing. Is that what other places are finding? Or are you coming back full staff?
This is Brooke Fox from the Medical University of South Carolina. And since we're connected to a medical institution, we are not going to be working in the library physically until at least mid-August at that, if we're going to do that. They may extend it depending on what's going on with the virus. But yeah, so currently we're all working from home 5 days a week. And we are working or discussing our plans for how we're going to, once we can get back, you know, how we're going to deal with visitors, because we do get a lot of visitors, patients and patient families. You know, we're discussing keeping the building locked and having people, you know, only by appointment. Yeah, and we've discussed also doing kind of staggered work too when we get back. So, yeah, but we have the added extra layer of the hospital, which we're considered non-essential in the scheme of things. So,
from the chat, both SDL and the state archives are also doing staggered schedules. From Gracie, teleworking with some time in the office until June 15th. We're supposed to be here on regular schedule. Like most library staff, and customer space is minimal in comparison with the space allocated to collections. And Amanda says that they have staggered starting times each day, but all staff are now required to work inside of the building every day, if not on some kind of leave.
We got a question, will anybody require masks for researchers? That's a big one, and even for your staff too. I mean, we did put up a plexiglass shelter or shield that is around our reference desk.
So USC has just come out with a requirement that everyone on campus who cannot physically distance has to wear a mask, and you have to wear a mask in classrooms and in the libraries and in the student union building. So that is the requirement.
Even in the library, if they can physically distance it, they still have to have the mask on?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
From the chat, College of Charleston has a mandatory mask requirement. And from Grace C, the county has an edict requiring a mask, but they are getting some pushback from staff. And Ann said that they do.
Oops, we lost Jim. And Ann was wondering about non-academic environments. Oh, he's not back yet. And we've got another question. I think the mask, I think it's going to be very interesting on where they use it. We got a question too when you're talking, you know, a mask, but also shared computer terminals and cleaning schedules on shared work service and for shared workspace or services, and is cleaning to be done by housekeeping or staff? What's everybody been doing on that? I know we've had the discussion where we're not letting our public workstations be used during phase 3. We haven't determined beyond phase 3, or is it going to be that, you know, we have to do a keyboard clean, and then, or even like in our main library, they're going to have to check out keyboards, and so then they'll get cleaned in between usages.
So at USC, the university HR guidelines indicate that every employee is responsible for keeping their own office clean, but the university is doubling its custodial workforce to be able to keep buildings clean, and they will be cleaning, you know, the public areas of buildings. And in terms of cleaning public terminals and things in the library, we are reducing the number of public terminals we have and ordering skins for keyboards and disposable covers for mice. There's a concern about the using like Clorox wipes on the keyboards and things. And so, you know, unless we have sort of alcohol-based cleaning, which is a little gentler on plastic, that's the way they're looking at public terminals with the skins and disposable covers.
From the chat, Beaufort County is going to be, sorry, staff will be cleaning equipment between customers at the state archives. They physically moved the microfilm readers and scanners, terminals to maintain social distancing, and that the plan is likely to have staff clean between patrons. MUSC, when the library staff returns, will be responsible for cleaning to a certain extent. Custodial staff will not increase for now. And BCL has disconnected some public computers to maintain social distancing.
Has anybody thought about actually getting rid of, especially their public scanners in the reading room? Because how many do your public scanners actually get a lot of usage, or is people mostly, if you allow them, are you going to allow people to take pictures with their phones?
You know, Brenda, I think it's interesting. It's one of those things that I was this many years old when I realized that my iPhone has a scanner function in it. It's not just a photo. So actually, that's one of those things where I was wondering if, you know, these are the kinds of things we should probably be providing as party info, because a lot of people I know don't know about that. And if we do let them use their phone cameras or something like that, which a lot of people like to do, that just to let them know they can get a scan out of it as well. So, yep. But it seems to me that it would be, if you're going to get rid of the public scanners, that that allowing phones to take pictures is probably going to have to be relaxed if it's an institution that doesn't currently allow it. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I keep debating about the public computers because I know we show people our guides on the public computers and then they can continue looking. Or is it that, you know, how many of them we have to make sure that we have guest Wi-Fi and that they can use their laptop?
One thing that we're to do, the draft plan for reopening for the College of Charleston libraries was just submitted to Academic Affairs today for approval. But in that plan, you know, this is all predicated on approval, but in that plan, we require an extensive virtual consultation prior to an in-person visit to the reading room. So, you know, during that time, it is our hope that we can address sort of any wayfinding questions, needs for, you know, reproduction. And I know how, who asked this? Was it Catherine maybe? You know, that dialogue that you have with researchers about, well, this is how you find this resource in the catalog, or, you know, this is my guess on how to make out this really sloppy cursive from, you know, 1789. It's, you know, really tough to think that we're going to have to kind of limit those kinds of really awesome conversations with our researchers in the reading room, but we are, you know, going to have that mandatory virtual or Zoom research consultation prior to in-person appointments.
I think that it's going to become very much an important component of for somebody to come and do the research, is to have that extensive ahead of time to see what, again, what you can do, and they don't have to come on site. And when they're on site, to make sure you can mitigate certain circumstances during that time too.
A number of folks in the chat have noted that computers are being removed to allow for social distancing, and that they are letting folks use phones, and at least one institution, which I'm trying to get because this goes too fast. J. Eric Elliott says that they actually don't have any scanners and don't allow the use of scanners in their reading room. The only ones they have there are strictly for microfilm.
Yep. Other questions or ideas? And we've talked a lot from, I was just looking at my notes here, from, you know, reference and research and quarantining the materials themselves, but instruction, also protection of ourselves with face mask and all of those types of things.
Brenda, this is Anne at Upstate again. Catherine had asked in the chat a little further up above about helping research. They often help researchers find something, looking over a document, and she had asked, how do you plan to do this while still maintaining social distance? And while we're not technically fully back in the library yet at Upstate, there are a few students that are in there because the building has been open with no services since we shut down in March. So while I have occasionally been there, I get stopped by a student where they have a problem, right? And you need to help them. So I've gotten really good at the long arm pointing from like a long way away. And they're seem to be very understanding about it, right? Because that, you know, they try to keep a space, and you know, I carry like a pencil because then I can reach even farther and I'm not touching my hand to the screen. So like I you know, and then then that pencil gets wiped off with a, you know, like with a disinfecting, you know, an alcohol wipe or something.
Suzanne just suggested using a laser pointer.
Ooh, I like that idea too.
I think a lot of it is, you know, we have to, you know, where you're saying, you know, keep them at that distance, but also it's amazing when you start thinking about how many times do you touch your face. And so it's training ourselves too that, okay, I'm in this circumstance where I couldn't social distance and I helped them and I was close enough. I mean, I have a little bottle of hand sanitizer in my pocket at all times now too, because it's that thing is that, okay, you know, how does it transfer? So making sure, you know, I don't touch my face, you know, and it's hard when you have that face mask on. How many times do you sit there and want to touch and adjust your face mask, you know? Because we've had the debate about the gloves and how it does protect you too, but sometimes it's going to be on the gloves, and if you still touch your face, doesn't matter if you have a glove on or not. So all these different circumstances, you know, that you start thinking about. All right, we've got about 6 minutes left, so we've got anybody got a burning question? I mean, I think laser pointers and chopsticks and pencils, I love it how we can keep our distance. So. I mean, it seems like everybody's in the beginning phases of, you know, reopening and thinking through these issues. And I really think, you know, the SCAA is a great forum for us to share. Because I mean, some of us, you know, we're a small part of a larger institution in a lot of places. And so it's been, you know, gratifying today to hear all of the different, how we're all thinking the same, or getting ideas of, oh my gosh, I hadn't really thought about that part, I need to explore that more. So I really appreciate, you know, everybody sharing, because this is really, this is how we're going to discover and really reopen and reopen safely. And today we've talked a lot about public. You know, do we need to have something talking about staffing concerns? You know, we had staggered work schedules and that, because I mean, the reality is that people have to come in, our staff have to come in and work on the collections. It's not something that they can continue to telecommute. So thinking about ways to, how do you mitigate the safety factors and making your staff feel safe and comfortable coming back to the environment? What are some things that people are doing there? Besides providing them a face mask, lots of hand sanitizer, but is there some nifty idea and safety factor that you've discovered?
Hey, Brenda, it's Catherine Slover here from the State Archives. And I think, I mean, sort of to tag on to what you're asking, that as far as, you know, the staff having to deal with this stuff, I think keeping an open line of communication between your staff is probably one of the most important things there. And, you know, discussing, this is what we're doing for these safety measures and why we're doing it, and, you know, trying to figure out what's their level of comfortability with also maintaining a level of work that we can do during COVID, right? Where this is unprecedented and we're all trying to figure it out. But I think that open line of communication is going to be essential throughout this process.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Any other questions? Oh, Jim?
Just something from the chat. Grace C. noted that one of their libraries 3D printed face shields for all staff. So if you've got maker spaces, you might, you know, in 3D printing setups, that might be something that you want to consider. And Amanda has a thank you for the Q&A. She's going to be taking what she learned here back to her institution to start developing best practices for dealing with all of this.
So we got time for one last burning question from somebody, or a tip, a discovery. Yep, we got something here saying, you know, we're looking at working from home to continue once the crisis is over, you know, and that is true. I mean, I think it's going to be, everybody's going to be playing it just by the seat of their pants, as sometimes they say, is we're going to have to deal with it and come up with solutions and continue certain aspects of this that what we've discovered during this work from home phase. I think there's a lot of good resources out there too. So everybody, you know, keep sharing the resources you've discovered, the different studies, but I know there's a lot of Google Docs out there where people are putting in information. I keep discovering new ones every day to go through and try to figure out, okay, what should, you know, what's new? What do I need to be looking at to provide a safe environment for everybody? So All right, I haven't heard any other questions. I want to really seriously, thank everybody for sharing, for coming into the forum, to the town hall today to share ideas, because this is something, as I said, we're all exploring and trying to figure out and find our way through. You know, and it's not something that's going to end at the end of that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Yeah, you're open, there's going to be different, we're still are going to have other phases after that, and how do we slowly implement, and actually, what things have we discovered during this time frame that, hey, we don't need to do that, but we need to do this, and how our services and what the archival front is going to look like on that aspect.
A couple of things from your sponsor.
Yes, please.
First off, I want to let everybody know that there will soon be a call for presentations as opposed to papers for the SCAA annual meeting. We'll be asking for those by the middle of August. We are almost certainly going to be going online, so if you've done something during this period that you wish to share, for example, those of us with special collections, we've put together a couple of transcription projects for the staff of the library to do, and we are planning to do a little presentation on that at the meeting. There will also be a report from the SHRAB about what they've been doing as far as planning is concerned. The second item is, do you want to do this again? We're currently, it seems everybody's at the beginning of this process. Would you all like to meet again in a few weeks, a month, whatever, to discuss, okay, we're a bit farther into our planning for actually opening up, and this is what we've had. And so far, I'm getting a number of people in the chat saying, yeah, let's do this. And thinking sometime in maybe July, after the 4th, and bringing virtual cookies.
You have to bring your favorite drinking glass or something. I've got my all-in one.
Yeah, a number of people are saying after July 1st, 4th, or that another 3 or 4 weeks would have pushed most people into the next phase where they're beginning to talk more about that. So it seems like a number of folks would be interested in doing this again. So the board will be discussing that, and if we do it, we'll probably do it in about a month or so. And just a reminder that this was recorded, and when we find a place to put it, we will let you know and tell you how to get access to the recording. Any final words, Brenda?
Nope, just thank you, everybody. And
thank you very much.
Have a great week.